Coming up on Kochie's Business Builders, we brew up a cash flow solution for a mobile bar business. Get some expert advice for business growth pains, and siblings behind booming franchise Anytime Fitness share their secrets to success. Welcome back to KBB. We've got another bumper episode for you of expert advice today. Back again here at Adelaide. There are so many exciting businesses here that we're going to be showing you throughout the series. I can't wait for it. But first, news you can use. New research shows the local tech startup sector has the potential to plug the huge hole left by limping miners. A PwC study claims the Australian tech sector is growing so rapidly it could contribute 540,000 new jobs and 4% of GDP by 2033. Mining and related services currently tip in 8% of national output, but we need more investment in the sector. Australia currently spends a measly $7.50 a head in venture capital each year compared to the US $75 and Israel's $150. But the most crucial aspect is having the go-getters to do it. Australia needs 2,000 more tech entrepreneurs each year. So is that you? Michael Watson started a mobile bar business out of his parents' garage when he was just 21, and now, 5 years later, it's a great success. But what's on tap is taking a step up to cater for festivals, and cash flow is getting crunched. So he sent in finance maestro Michael Ford to run a ruler over the operation.
Okay, so you've grown now from 1 bar to 20 bars. Now, tell me about how cash flow's been through that growth.
I guess it's the transition from, in the past, we've really focused our business on private functions, corporate events, and weddings where the invoices are paid prior to the event. We're now making that slow transition into the larger events and the festivals. Typically, a festival we've won that's in November. We won that back in July, and it's a bit of a worry for me having to fork out, in the vicinity of 70 to 80,000. Before the event even starts. We obviously have to pay our suppliers 7 days, 14 days, possibly 30 days. But what do we do to, in the meantime, when we got 60-day terms from that large client? Your
new business now, the second business, the business with big customers, to me sounds like a naturally negative cash flow business. Okay?
Is that a good thing?
It can be a good thing, there's nothing wrong with it, because every business, no matter what industry you're in, has what we'd call a natural level. Like, some businesses have got really high margins, but their customers take a long time to pay. They've got to have a lot of stock. They've got to pay their suppliers really quickly. They can be really ugly businesses from a cash flow point of view, but they still work. All it means is you as the business owner need to know how much cash you've got to have available to help you through the peaks and troughs. Here's a couple of different areas you could look at. Firstly, and traditionally, you talk about family and friends, basically. So you put your hand in your own pocket. Mum and dad, the family and aunties and uncles give you some cash to help out. Second level, I guess, is things like credit cards, short-term funding. The third option then is a bank overdraft, which is perfect for dipping into and out of just to fund weekly expenses. Fourth option, you might look at something like invoice finance or debtor finance. Now, invoice finance has had, over the years, a bit of a stigma attached to it, but I don't reckon that applies anymore. So invoice finance is where a finance company gives you, let's say, 80% of the value of your invoices 2 days after you send the invoice out to your customers. You pay an admin fee, you pay some interest, but it's a great way to fund a fast-growing business. So that's an option maybe that will work for you.
I did not even know that existed. That's great.
Look, it's very popular, and often the lending terms are not as stringent as a bank. So because these guys are more focused on lending against cash flow. Okay, so they'll look at the quality of your customer book, and you've got some great customers there on your register now. So that will help very much in any lending decision. If you have a business that now has to have a hardcore debt balance inside it, a long-term loan's the perfect way to fund that sort of thing. Because what you want to try and do when you're getting funding is match the length of the debt to the length of time you're going to be using the money for. So if you're investing in long-term assets and infrastructure and all sorts of things, maybe a long-term loan will match better the funding or the payment profile on that sort of thing. So just to wrap up, you've got a great little business. It's got a great future ahead of it. You're making some good profits, but here's a couple of things I'd recommend. Number one, get a good forecast in place so that you're forecasting your cash flow as well as you're forecasting your operations. Number two, always watch that those customers are paying you in 60 days, that they're not stretching out to 65 and 70 and 80. Watch that you're paying your suppliers on their terms. You don't need to pay your suppliers early, but maybe if they give you some discounts, you can. Okay. The third thing is growth can really put pressure on margins, and the margin is the starting point for your cash flow. So try and protect those margins as much as you possibly can.
A great wrap of the financing options available to quickly growing companies there, especially less considered alternatives like invoice financing. Be sure to check out the full interview on our website if your business is suffering a similar cash squeeze. Coming up next, a business going gangbusters that needs some help handling growth. This business tip brought to you by NAB. We see Australian business. So David, you say you see Australian business. Say I'm a clothing shop and want to apply for a loan. What do you see?
So applying for a loan is a process where there'll be a rigorous assessment of your credit position. So there's a few things that we need to take into consideration, but the main thing is we actually want to help you get that loan.
So give me some tips on how to get approval for that application.
So we talk about the 3 C's as the main thing, so we can assess you properly for the product. So the first C is character. So who are you and what do you understand about the business you're in, and how well defined are your plans going forward? So it's really about you.
And the second C?
And the second C is cash flow. So we need to make sure you've got the right amount of cash flow to keep the business going, and making sure that A, you can pay the loan, and B, you can pay your wages.
And the third C, the final one?
And the final one is collateral. So we'd look at security, which we would need to hold against the loan. So that may be premises or other assets or even stock and shares. If you get those things right, we can help you get your loan right.
For more information, visit nab.com.au/small business. Work-life balance is a mirage in the desert of work for a lot of small business owners. But as KBB's growth expert Linda Haley says, you risk falling out of love with your business if you don't get it right. The salty dogs at successful surfboard business boardcave.com are a couple of those struggling to balance their time and company commitments. Linda popped in to give them some timely advice. Ryan and Chris from the Gold Coast started an online business that sells surfboards custom made right here in Oz. But 7 months in, business has boomed and they're grappling with growth.
So what are the sort of issues in your business at the moment?
Really, resources is probably a big one. Like we have a small team at the moment. Like it's me, Chris, and we've got another intern on board at the moment. And it's just a lot of time. Like there's so many things to do. It's a new business. It's growing nicely.
And you're growing quite rapidly.
Absolutely. So about 30,000 users in the first 3 months, and then from month to month we've been growing about 20%.
So what sort of hours are you working?
Daylight, yeah, from 7 to 7, 7 to 10, whatever, yeah.
7 a.m?
Yeah, easy.
If you're working those hours to service the business you've got at the moment, what's going to happen when this business grows? What's going to happen when it takes off? Because it will.
Yeah, definitely.
It's almost guaranteed. So can we talk a little bit about the hours and what it is you're actually doing?
Yeah, definitely.
So what sort of things would you do in a typical day?
We would wake up and respond to a lot of emails. There's the B2B, so speaking with a lot of shapers, and then the customers as well. Then we've got all our different projects that we're working on, improving like logistics tracking and refining the board engine and features, because everything that we've built is around buying surfboards online.
One of the things that's really, really common with startups is you tend to be product focused more than anything else.
Yeah.
This product focus is great as long as you know when to move on.
Yep.
The other way of looking at it is setting aside specific product development time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I also think you are at a real risk of burning out and or falling out of love with your business. You've said you're growing this business organically.
Yep.
So organic is good. and organic is getting you 20% month on month increase, pedaling harder isn't necessarily going to get you more business.
Okay.
So the customer interface, some of it is sales related and others is just customer service. Okay. You probably need to start looking at those two differently. I would start flagging and tracking visitors who generate work and customers who generate work.
Yeah, definitely.
Tracking,
That actually then will give you some clues as to staffing and as to how you're going to handle other things, because eventually you will have answered almost every question there is to answer.
That data that we're gathering comes into really the things that we prioritise in the features on the site and how we're going to automate that.
Because that's the data that's going to get rid of some of that face-to-face or email-to-email time.
Definitely.
Because you can eventually post it on the site, or you can have a fact sheet, a downloadable fact sheet that answers all those.
And that's the goal, really. That's what we want to do, and that makes it easier for the customer in the end. So.
Well, then the other thing is that you can then spend your productive time on the ones who are converting and are generating revenue.
and then automate it.
And look for ways to make it easier. Because the other thing I want you to do is to capture all the stuff you can do so that down the track you can get someone else to do it.
Up next, we find out how the siblings behind Anytime Fitness tested their business model before taking the gym scene by storm. This payments tip brought to you by BPay.
Cash is the fuel that powers your business, and BPay makes it easier than ever to keep cash flowing with fast and secure online or mobile payments. It will ensure there are cleared funds available in your business account as soon as the next banking business day. Offered on over 44,000 bills, BPay is Australia's leading bill payment service, with 3 out of 4 Australian bill payers using the service because of its ease and convenience. And BPay isn't just for the big end of town. Almost any business can register to become a BPay biller. Enjoy the benefits of fast and secure payments.
Visit bpay.com.au/SME for more information. Like most teenagers, I battled with my brother and sister growing up, but this week's entrepreneurs in the spotlight are siblings that opened their first gym together straight out of school and went on to build one of the country's quickest growing franchises. We caught up with Anytime Fitness duo Justin and Jacinta to find out just how they did it.
So when you first brought the Anytime Fitness model into Australia, how did you go about testing it?
Obviously, we looked at it in the US. We travelled from Minneapolis to Chicago, and we took our little key fob and went into as many clubs as we could to make sure the product worked. We chatted to franchisees and members as well. So we looked at that, then we looked at the Australian marketplace, and we thought things could fly here.
So Jacinta, why regional areas in particular to test the model?
I think testing it there really enabled us to minimise the risk in terms of launching the brand. The rents are obviously a little bit lower. Enabled us to get in and really get a feel for whether this was going to work regionally before we jumped into the metro market. So that did work really well. We started in Gunnedah, Muswellbrook, Wodonga and Victoria. So they were really 3 really good test markets for us. And it did transpire into the metro markets really well after that.
What were the key things that you had to identify in making sure that was the right model to bring over?
All the gyms that were being offered to the consumer were the same. So Fitness First was very large at the time. A lot of the clubs are offering all the same thing, and we really felt that the consumer didn't have a choice as to what sort of gym they wanted to attend. So the 24-hour model was really appealing to us. The fact that we could go into regional towns was extremely appealing. The high level of equipment that we were going to bring in and the quality of the brand that we were going to launch we just felt really comfortable that it was the right time to bring it in.
What was the inspiration then, or motivation, from going from your own gym to a franchise model?
I think we've always understood franchising. We've both had some experience working with Fernwood. And I think for us to be able to grow the brand as quickly as we wanted to grow the brand, franchising was really a natural step for us. We really felt that we wanted that community feel and being one corporate company going into lots of different regional towns, we were never going to be able to achieve that.
And you mentioned earlier that a few of your franchisees have 10 or more gyms. How have you fostered those relationships and maintained such engagement?
Our first franchisee has got 10 clubs open now, so that's in a 4.5-year period, so he's grown quite quickly. With all our IT systems, the franchisee can dial in, have a look at their cameras, have a look at our sales and tracking systems as well. So our franchise model is a really low staff model. Once a member joins up, they get their key fob. They really look after themselves, and then they can have personal training on top. So focused really heavily on sales and marketing in the early days.
Okay.
Then after about 6 months, the club should be at its break-even point and starting to make good profit, and then the franchisee can move on to a second and third club.
What about the biggest lesson that you guys have learned going through this whole process?
Probably with us is managing the growth. Initially people were saying, why do people want to train 24 hours a day? That won't work over here. Why do you want to buy a master franchise when you can do it yourself? So we went through all that, meeting solicitors and lawyers, and then proving it would work.
Right, well, it's a very exciting story, guys, and some explosive growth to come. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up next, it's time to field another of your questions in Ask Kochie. This Business in the Spotlight brought to you by BPay.
So, Matt, we're here at Q1. You've got a very interesting business to tell us about. How'd you get started?
A friend of mine, Tony Smith, was playing at the Sydney Swans in the late 80s. They asked him to be traded to North Melbourne, so he decided to open his own business to do end-of-season footy trips for footy teams, and he thought there might be a good business in finding rooms for Schoolies Week. And 25 years later, here we are. It's a massive business. And each year we do or handle Schoolies bookings for approximately 25 to 30,000 students.
Okay, and how's the business changed with the advent of the internet?
Going back into the 90s, basically the whole business was over the phone and using Australia Post. We had a feeling that the students would rather book online. We basically got an IT team together and worked out how to do an online booking system, which was quite revolutionary back in those days.
And how do you handle the seasonality through the business? Because obviously school is just a couple of months of the year.
There are times where we're busier than others, so we make sure that the staff are taking their leave in the quiet times. That's one thing. But we do also employ a few casual staff in the really busy times throughout the year.
So Matt, what are some of the business challenges you faced before you changed payment processing systems?
We used to allow students to come in and pay with cash. They'd be queued out the door for hundreds of metres on the big payment days. So there'd be some days where we might have up to $50,000 collected in cash, which you wouldn't want to have a robbery at that time. But also just making sure that it's counted properly, issuing receipts. So once we were able to implement the BPay solution, it meant that we could say, well, look, there's no need to pay by cash anymore. You can use BPay, and everyone was very happy to do that.
And in terms of the administrative side of things, how much has that changed?
If you go back, say, 10 years ago, we have a very busy time around September, October, when everyone is paying their final payments for their upcoming schoolies holiday. And previously, we over a 2-week period, we might have 1,000 cheques each day being posted into us. So with BPay these days, basically the students pay online, and then the next morning we download the file, and so that's done in about 10 seconds, which previously that might have taken 5 people all day.
So there's been quite a significant staff saving as well.
Massive reduction in just wages, but also, doing that much data entry, there's errors, and once you make an error with someone's booking, that creates additional work. They ring you, it creates more phone calls,
sure,
more confusion. So it's certainly been a huge benefit for our business.
Visit bpay.com.au/SME for more information. This tech tip brought to you by McAfee.
One of the best things about having a shop is that you can greet your customers when they walk in and help them with their purchase. However, if your store is online, you miss out on that crucial customer interaction. That is, until now. Zopum is a fantastic tool that allows you to have live interaction with your customers. In fact, conversations with your customers. You can see what they're looking at, you can help them with product information, and you can see whether or not they're happy with their purchase. Best thing is, it's very easy to install, so you don't need to be a developer, and it's super cheap. You can even share it with your team. And when you're out and about, you can still keep in touch with what your customers are doing and have interactions on your mobile device. And it's a great way of building loyalty and getting your customers coming back to your store.
Now to answer some of your questions, and Abisso has sent one in via Facebook. How can I find a trusted overseas supplier for electronic products, and what are the things I should be looking for in an overseas partner? Well, Austrade must be on your radar. They have a terrific network of contacts throughout Asia, in particular, that can help with introductions to local contacts and suppliers. Outside of that, talk to other businesses in the industry with offshore suppliers to see whether you can work together and even get a better deal by doing so, or get a referral to a trusted supplier. Securing a new supplier is like hiring a new employee. You want to see a track record, good references, and of course, the capacity to supply what you need. Now, if you're after more weekly advice and business news from our expert journalists, plus a heap of interviews that didn't make it into this episode, join our newsletter at kochiesbusinessbuilders.com.au. Catch you next time. Next week on KBB, keeping your online customers loyal, protecting your business from cyber criminals, and how to stay at the cutting edge of industry innovation with the guys behind King Kong.